Welcome to the Academy, a series focused on the basics of Star Wars: The Old Republic. Gearing up in Star Wars: The Old Republic is easier than it ever has been before, and there are dozens of different types of ways players can earn gear. Gearing up using group activities like Operations, Flashpoints, and player versus player matches will always be the fastest way to gear up. But what if you're a player who wants to gear up purely playing solo? In this video, we'll be covering the different ways you can work your way towards the best gear in the game for level 75 while playing alone. This solo guide will not include player versus player, Galactic Starfighter, Operations, and Group Finder Flashpoints. Before we start though, let's make sure you understand the basics of level 75 gearing. The important thing to know is that the gear you find at level 75 is almost always based on your current item rating. So anytime you get a piece of gear, or a modification, that has a higher item rating, you'll want to immediately equip it so the next piece of gear that drops for you might be slightly better. Now let's finally dive into getting gear. Number 1. Treasure hunting boxes. Well, I don't think I'd recommend leveling up the treasure hunting crew skill from scratch just to help gear up. If you already have a character with a high level treasure hunting skill, or a friend who does, treasure hunting can be a really nice way to get through the first few steps of raising your item rating. Once you, or your friend, reach treasure hunting level 550, you'll gain access to grade 10 missions, and 2 of those grade 10 missions will be for lockboxes, with another lockbox mission available in grade 11. Lockboxes contain a slightly random assortment of items, but most of them seem to contain at least one piece of item rating 270 to 276 gear. The best part about these lockboxes is that they're one of the few types of gear boxes that are not dependent on your current gear score. So if you have a pair of 270 gloves on, open a treasure hunting box, and you could get a pair of 276 gloves if you're lucky, versus most of the time you'll open a box and get maybe a 1+ point upgrade if you're lucky. Here's where it gets even better. The lockboxes themselves can be traded. That means players can help each other by gathering lockboxes for friends who have a fresh level 75 character. Number 2. Conquest. Completing your weekly Conquest goal is by far the easiest and best way to gear up for solo players, as not only is the gear pretty good, it also offers solo players a pretty wide variety of activities to choose from. Conquest is a way of completing different tasks to earn points during a week's time, and once you earn a certain number of points, you'll get a box of gear that will be based on your item rating when you open it. This will be the small Conquest equipment crate with a gold border, and you'll also get 100 tech fragments. You can get to your weekly Conquest by pressing L on your keyboard to get to your mission log, then click the Conquest tab. Bottom left shows the tasks for this week and how many points they each give, most of which can be repeated daily. The time left on the current week is in the top left, and the number of points you need to earn for getting a gearbox is on the top right. Usually it's 50,000. While the tasks with the highest point values will likely be out of solo players' wheelhouse, there are tons of easy and solo-focused tasks like crafting, companions, defeating normal enemies on planets, space missions, story flashpoints, heroic missions, and daily missions. I've also put together an awesome guide called Super Easy Conquest Objectives, Solo Conquest, and Crafting that you can look through for some simple ones. What makes Conquest gearing even more powerful is that you can usually combine it with other activities that you earn gear more directly, like solo flashpoints or dailies. Some activities like heroics or some of the older dailies won't directly give you any useful gear, but they will still earn you Conquest points and Renown points, which we'll cover later. I've seen quite a few players who think heroics give gear, as heroics give great gear at lower levels, but once you hit level 61, heroic crates only reward you with empty cosmetic armor. In addition to your personal Conquest goal, there's also guild conquests that give you an additional reward on top of your personal reward. To earn them, you do need to join a guild, which is kind of the opposite of playing solo. But many players join guilds simply to take advantage of Conquest without ever actually meeting their guildmates. You don't need to be in a huge guild, just an active one, where enough members are actively playing to meet the guild-wide points total goal that everyone automatically contributes to. If you meet your personal goal that week, and your guild also meets their guild-wide goal, you'll get a second box of gear at the end of the week, which can sometimes be even better than the personal one you got. It'll also contain either 300, 400, or 500 tech fragments depending on what guild-wide goal your guild chose. The large yield gearbox is usually pretty amazing, and all players, solo or not, should try and take advantage of this really great way to gear up each week through Conquest. To see the current guild Conquest, click the Guild Invasion tab on your mission log beside the Conquest tab. The only thing that matters to you here is the guild-wide goal on the top right and whether or not you've met your personal Conquest. If you want to learn more about Conquest in general, I have a SWTOR Conquest guide. Part of the concept of gearing up through Conquest is to complete it on multiple level 75 characters per week. Most objectives can be completed once per day across all your characters, so you can strategize by spreading out objectives between multiple characters if you're only playing 1 day a week, and other objectives are once per conquest, so if you're planning to complete those ones, make sure to spread them out between your characters. For example, on my main character, I usually reach Conquest naturally by doing operations or whatever else I was normally going to do that week. For a second character, I might seek out some high-value one-time objectives, and on my third low-level character, I might save and then complete some of the very easy objectives to reach my personal goal. Daily login rewards will also eventually grant you a personal Conquest requisition token, which you can use to boost any character automatically to their 50,000 Conquest point goal. This is great to use on a character you don't plan on playing that week, and it's most optimized by using it on a level 75 character. Very important! Don't forget to equip your highest legacy bound set of armor to your character, especially your alternate characters, before opening the yellow crate from your Conquest rewards, or you'll get gear based on what your character is currently wearing. Number 3, the Spoils of War vendor. You'll earn tech fragments from many different types of activities we'll talk about in this guide, and you can use them to remove some of your roadblocks when it comes to gearing. We talked earlier about how gear you find or get from crates is almost always based on your current item rating, which is an average of all your pieces' item ratings. Because what piece drops is fairly random, sometimes you'll have one piece of gear that has a way lower individual item rating compared to the rest of your pieces and is dragging down your overall average. This is where the Spoils of War vendor comes in. The vendor is located in the supply section of the fleet and a room around the outer edge. Republic side, the vendor is named Nitu. Imperial side, the vendor is named Takana. This vendor will exchange tech fragments for randomized pieces of gear to go in a slot of your choice, so you can choose to get a randomized helmet, a randomized armoring, or whatever else you're hoping to replace. Much like gear crates, what you receive is based on your current item rating, and you can take advantage of this fact when you have one piece that's a straggler, as purchasing that randomized piece from the vendor will almost always give you a decent upgrade. If that piece is an upgrade, equip it and it should raise your item rating some. If you have more tech fragments and your item is still lower than the rest of your gear, you can repeat the process until that piece is caught up or you run out of tech frags. Tech fragments are quite precious, particularly to solo players, so once your gear piece is upgraded, don't gamble away the rest of your tech fragments trying to upgrade the rest of your gear. You'll want to save them to buy your set bonus gear. Buying a randomized piece from the Spoils of War vendor costs around 300 to 400 tech fragments per piece, but you'll eventually need 3,000 tech fragments per piece of set bonus gear you want to buy from a different vendor. You'll usually start doing that once you've gotten to 306. To see how many tech fragments you have, go into your inventory and click the Currency tab on the top right. If you're looking for a lower intensity activity than some of the ones we'll be covering next, the daily quests on Onderon and Mek-Sha are a great choice. To access these dailies, you'll need to have fully completed the Onslaught expansions, including the Onderon, Mek-Sha, and Corellia Flashpoint stories. The Onderon dailies are quite relaxing, and some of them don't even require combat. Once you fly to Onderon in the main city, there will be a glowing blue box that will give you the weekly quest and some of the daily quests, and the rest can be picked up from nearby quest givers or terminals. So the way the quests work, there's a daily quest that asks you to complete any 6 Onderon dailies of your choice and rewards a gear box with okay-ish gear in it, plus 100 tech frags, and a weekly quest that rewards you with decent gear and 400 tech frags. While the upgrades won't be as consistent as they are from, say, Conquest crates, the Onderon dailies are quick and easy, and you also get the bonus of working on your Onderon reputation, which unlocks some pretty cool cosmetic items the more you run them. They also reward a ton of tech fragments. Mek-Sha, the second planet in the Onslaught expansion, offers 2 different ways to get some gear crates. First off are the 2 daily heroics, which will each give you a daily gearbox crate similar to the Onderon daily gearbox with okay-ish gear and 100 tech fragments. These 2 heroics, while not necessarily easy, can be soloed. Important note, the difficult We're Wanted Men quest, which is not labeled as a heroic, does not reward gear, so don't worry about it. The real winner when it comes to earning gear on Mek-Sha casually, though, is the Trade House Weekly. The Trade House Weekly can be picked up inside the auction house, which is the top right quick traveler taxi, and you can pick it up from a glowing blue terminal inside the auction house, and requires that you complete 3 Trade House daily quests. These daily quests can only be completed once per day, so you'll need to pick up and complete Trade House quests on 3 separate days to complete the weekly. The good news is the quests are incredibly easy and require you to complete a simple task on another planet, then turn it in on Mek-Sha. For your 3-day effort, you'll be rewarded with a weekly crate that has 400 tech frags and what looks like a really good amount of upgrades from when I was testing. Don't forget, you can do this quest on multiple characters. Number 5, soloing Flashpoints. Speaking of high-intensity activities, while Flashpoints were originally designed for groups of 4, many can be taken on alone. Players who have a character who can stealth and who feel confident about learning tactics and their abilities can run 4-person group content in the most difficult mode, but instead of doing it with a group, they go in by themselves with a companion. The most popular Flashpoint to do this with is Master Mode Red Reaper, as you can skip past all the in-between enemies with stealth and just fight the bosses. I went in when I had about item rating 300 gear, but skilled players can do this with basic level 75 gear. I couldn't do that. Another popular choice for this method of gearing is solo stealthing Master Mode Hammer Station. If you want to take a crack at stealthing Red Reaper on an operative, assassin, scoundrel, or shadow, I've got a guide with tips about how to handle each boss. The only main downside of this method is that it can be difficult. It took me quite a few tries to pass through this. The good news is if you can get past it, you can get approximately 20 pieces of gear, with many of them being upgrades in under 10 minutes. If you can't pass the final boss, you can also just fight the first 2 and reset the phase after leaving the Flashpoint. In addition to the rewards you get directly from stealth soloing a Master Mode Flashpoint, before you start, you should also pick up the weekly Galactic Conflicts quest from the fleet. There's a glowing blue terminal near where you load into the fleet with your emergency fleet pass, because completing any of the 3 listed master modes will net you an additional 3 boxes of gear and 300 tech fragments. If you don't have a stealth character, or are finding soloing master modes to be too tough, you can instead try out soloing veteran Flashpoints. Almost all of them can be soloed by players comfortable with their class. However, they drop less gear upgrades compared to Master Mode, and you only get 2 gear boxes and 150 tech fragments if you complete the weekly Veteran Flashpoints quest, where you need to do 5 Veteran Mode Flashpoints. In my testing, I found that although Hammer Station is often recommended to solo, it can be very difficult to even get to the first boss. I did, however, have some great luck and fun soloing Veteran Mode Aethys, a 4-person Flashpoint. While it took me a few tries, it was enjoyable and more than possible even with low gear and kind of button mashing. You'll need to make use of Heroic Moment interrupts and your defensive cooldown, so if you happen to be on a stealth character as well, you can skip past the normal Aethys enemies, but the normal enemies are not too hard to fight if you don't have stealth. While solo players may be drawn towards story flashpoints, the easiest type of flashpoints available that are specifically designed to be completed solo, it's not a great choice when it comes to gearing up. Although normal flashpoints give decent gear, solo flashpoint boss rewards seem to be very small and rarely contain an upgrade compared to any of the other methods. I've also had quite a few players tell me that Uprisings are soloable even after the recent changes that made them harder on both story and veteran mode. From my testing, the boss enemies are very difficult, and most players will likely not be able to fight them unless they're very skilled and very well geared. I don't recommend them. If you're skilled enough to run Uprisings solo in their current iteration, you're probably better off using any of the other methods to gear up. Number 6. Master Mode Chapters. Master Mode Chapters are some of the most difficult content designed for solo players available in the game. It can be very satisfying to try and complete every chapter on Master Mode, but many of the chapters are extremely difficult and not worth doing specifically to gear up. I've seen players suggesting to do Chapter 1 on Master Mode as it rewards a gold crate at the end, but I believe the average player will have a lot of trouble with this one. I did, however, have a lot of luck with Chapter 2, A Dream of Empire, where I was just able to climb a bunch of the rocks and run around many of the enemies. The boss fights took me a few tries, and the final boss took me a long time to kill, but I benefited greatly from the healing buff you get throughout this flashpoint. This content is going to be too difficult for some players, but it's worth trying out if you feel comfortable playing your class. Number 7. Renown. Renown is a way of gaining gear from doing almost any activity in the game. At level 75, you stop earning normal XP, and any XP you would earn after that gets converted into Renown XP. For every 160,000 Renown XP you earn, you get a box of gear, known as a Renown crate. Those are the purple ones with the blue background. And you'll also get 100 tech fragments. Unfortunately, Renown crates often contain lower end gear compared to many of the awesome gear boxes we talked about earlier, so you'll want to focus on the other activities if your goal is to actively be gaining gear. Always claim your gear from the Renown stash, never disintegrate it. Number 8. Crafting. Buying crafted gear from the GTN can be an incredibly fast route to reach the Real 6 item rating gear, if you have the credits. The current route to crafting the best gear in the game is extremely expensive, time-consuming, and filled with low chances of learning the schematics you need, and many players haven't dug into level 75 crafting at all for this reason. For the players that have done the hard work and investment of learning the best 306 schematics available, even once you have the schematic, the materials to craft just one piece are incredibly expensive. For example, a single 306 armoring takes 8 complex crafted components, 40 processed isotopes, 12 solid resource matrices, and 5 legendary embers. And if you're looking to buy a full set of armorings, you'd need at least 7, not to mention all the other modifications and pieces you need. Because they're so hard to craft, each crafted piece costs millions on the player market. At the time making this video, the Superior Versatile Armoring 80, the best 306 armoring for damaged characters in the game, is being sold for 9 million credits per armoring. At that rate, a full set of crafted 306 gear would cost you about 300 million credits or more, and you still wouldn't technically have the best gear in the game. If you're looking to craft your own armor, you can get item rating 268 schematics straight from the trainer, and then reverse engineer them to get the better versions. Check out my Onslaught crafting guide if that's something you're interested in. Just know that's a big time and material investment, which is why it's so low down on this list. Overall, I don't really recommend crafting 306 endgame gear or buying it from the GTN. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about solo gearing in Star Wars The Old Republic for level 75. There's a lot to it, but it's mainly because the current gearing system gives you a lot of options, which is fantastic because there's so many different ways to play the game. have fun gearing up solo, and once again, I do highly recommend checking out the group content in the game, especially with a group through chat or through a guild. Good luck getting to 306, and may the Force be with you.